republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Secretary to note roll call.
All members present, Dave via Zoom.
Board correspondent report, Pat.
Okay, the general aid is out for the school districts. Algoma got a 4.32% increase, which amounts to a little short of $200,000. When I'm looking at a lot of the districts, a lot of them took a lot less. They got cuts in their general aid, so I was quite fortunate to see that we were on the upside and not the downside of that. The DPI released their statewide testing results, and it showed that the impact of the pandemic and school closures, what they had on the testing, but they think maybe part of the decline was due to the pandemic-related issues, of course, but a learning environment, change in learning environment, parental opt-out of your child from the assessments, and changes in enrollment from previous years. And Wisconsin, we're not alone. It's consistent with the national trend. So it's happened all over the United States. There's a number of bills in Madison. Couple of them, or three of them actually have. Three of them have passed both houses, and they're headed to the governor. Bill 373 would require the DPI to create a school district financial information portal so that the public can access that. So we'll see if all of these bills, the governor could veto it. So we really don't know until he signs on the dotted line. Senate Bill 4623 would require each school district to post learning materials and educational activities used in pupil instruction so parents know what's being taught in the schools. And the other one is a bill that specifies that youth apprenticeship programs must be included in the list of educational options that a school provides. And you have to give that information to parents and or guardians. A couple of them have passed the Senate and headed to the Assembly. This one would add September 11th to the list of special observance days for schools. Now these are the ones that have passed the Assembly. Now that one was past the Senate, headed to the Assembly. Now these are the ones that passed the Assembly and are headed to the Senate. Under the bill, school was prohibited from, this one I found quite interesting, is prohibited from allowing a teacher to teach pupils race or sex stereotyping, and is prohibited from requiring an employee to attend such classes. If a school district decides to violate that, then the DPI is instructed to take 10% of your state aid distributions from that school. And parents could also bring a claim against the school for violating that restriction. There's another bill that would require the state superintendent of public instruction to incorporate cursive writing, and we've talked about that extensively. This bill would say that they have to be able to write legibly in cursive by the end of 5th grade. Some of our doctors don't even write legibly, but we'd like to have it legibly. There's a bill that requires a half credit of civics education for high school graduation. I remember when I was in high school, granted it's a long time ago, but we had to take civics. So that bill's being proposed. And there's another one that requires reports concerning state agencies' expenditures of federal coronavirus relief funds and requires allocating $100 million of those funds, of the American Rescue Plan Act, for grants to schools, independent charter schools, and private schools for mental health programs. Wouldn't that be nice? So that's kind of where Madison is at.
Okay.
So there you go.
A lot of it pending.
A lot of it pending. Three up for signature, a lot of it pending.
Yeah. Questions or comments for Pat? Thank you. We'll move on. Board CISA report. Mick.
Well, it's going to be a very busy October, November, December, because we'll be looking for a new administrator for CISA. So my calendar's getting quite full with days to have to run to Green Bay, but that's the way it's got to go. So we are writing 2 grants. Jeff was hoping, and he was figuring we'd get the one from the Rising Phoenix Early College Compliance Science Program. It's being written with CISA 6, 7, and 8. It's a $1 million grant, so he's very hopeful on that one. Not sure what he's planning on doing with that.
You can.
Not
Can't
sure what he's
hear
planning on doing with that. Also, if you're a Lakeland grad with a K-9 certificate, you can get a special ed certification if you take their 7 courses through CISA 7, their special education program. So if anybody is certified and wants to get into special ed, you can get some classes through CISA 7 and become certified. If anybody did not attend the virtual meeting, or the meeting that wasn't virtual, I mean, it is virtual now if you want to go on the WSB website and listen to, what's his name? Gosh, WSB guy. What's his name? Ashby, yeah. John okay. Ashby? John Ashby, yep. So it's out there on their WSB website. And this year, there was only 5 resolutions that were submitted to the resolution committee. So, you know, if anybody, districts can submit a resolution to the WSB Resolution Committee. The WSB decides if it's worthy of going on, and if it is, then those go to the get voted on by the delegate assembly at the state convention. And if they pass there, then hopefully they can do some lobbying down with the legislatures and the Senate. So hopefully that there's only 5 that ours on mental health will be heard, and you know, something get done on in Madison.
Great.
So it was a good time for us to write one, I guess.
Yeah.
Because usually there's 25 or 30 that get approved, and only having 5.
Maybe it'll be short.
Yeah, I don't know why, but, so
Yeah.
I was very hopeful. I am very hopeful.
Yeah, that would be great. And as far as the virtual regional meetings, this Wednesday,
Yes, the
the
27th.
27th at 7, so.
The link is on the WSB website, and,
Is that 7?
At 7.
yep,
Mhm.
that's it.
Okay, any questions or comments from Nick? All right, we will move on to student representative report. Julia?
All right, so sports, all sports have ended. We want to congratulate the following people for football that received all conference awards. Carter Ashley got first team offensive line and first team defensive line. Leighton Hagley got second team running back. Noah Lucas got first team linebacker. Chris Allen Ritchie got second team offensive line. Grant Van Vest got first team wide receiver. Caden Barton got first team wide receiver and first team DB. And then Carter Zimmerman got second team quarterback and second team linebacker. And then volleyball got some honorable mentions. Riley Findale for front row, and then Miley Jones for all the way around. Soccer also got some honorable mentions. Riley Robinson got honorable mention, and Owen Robertson. And then girls basketball will be starting November 5th. That's when the whole season starts. And then boys basketball will also start on November 15th. Homecoming was a success. The king and queen were Zach Mitchell and Morgan Matson. And then one act is advancing to sectionals, and that will be October 29th at 4 o'clock.
Excellent.
That's all we have.
And crutches you have.
Yes, this is from cross country.
Oh.
Yeah, I may have a stress fracture in my shin,
Oh,
so
boy.
Oh.
minor.
Oh, boy. Still no fun. Any questions or comments to Julia? Thank you for your report. All right, the next agenda item is something I have put on, and I'm going to have on every meeting. Misconceptions and rumors. Basically, what can happen and can be very damaging to a very good school district is when there are bits of information about school district business that might start with a little bit of fact, but then with the whole communication game and things that keep moving on, it might get contorted into something that has nothing to do with the original facts. And what I would like to do in this agenda item is just try and be as transparent as a district as I can be. If people hear something on the street or whatever, and it concerns the school district, we would like to try and just clarify on our end what we know of it. Because too often, things that start never come back to the source to find out if it's true or not. And so that's why I want this. And I will begin with a topic that I imagine a lot of you are here to hear about. And in my mind, the misconception of a statement that Ann made at our special school board meeting in her position of very strongly supporting masks. It was stated maybe with some poorly choice of words, maybe inappropriately and maybe a little out of order, but that wasn't the only out of order comment made at that meeting. But the reason I really believe it falls into the misconception is that it went from her supporting masking with a pretty drastic statement to going through the rumor mill or whatever happened to that Ann wants your children to die. And the reason I really think it's a misconception, and this again, I'm gonna allow Ann to speak because I'm not gonna speak, I don't wanna put words in her mouth. I'm giving you my perception on it. I believe everyone at that meeting, whether they certainly didn't like what she had to say, but I don't think they took it that she wanted any harm to come to any child in our district. And the reason I truly believe that myself is that we had a school board meeting 5 days later, and not one person said anything about it. So I really believe that and I know the first I heard about it was the end of that same week, I think on a Friday, where suddenly it had gone from a statement that, however you want to judge it, it had gone out on video, everybody started discussing it, it was an emotional issue, believe me. Our kids are an emotional issue. There is nothing that gets Mama Bear, protective in me than anything where I feel like something might be against my kids. So I think it gained momentum in that direction, and I think, frankly, it got a little out of control. So I believe totally, if I thought Ann had 1 ounce of her body against the students of our district, I would think she's not a fit school board member, but she's been a school board member for 15 plus years. I think the other thing about that is she was expressing her opinion. She has a right to her opinion. First Amendment rights apply to school board members as well as anybody else. And I think you also have to remember that while she obviously made a very strong statement that she believes masks are what keep the children from getting hurt, versus the other strong opinion that is equally strong, where people really believe that masks are a problem for children's health, she still voted at the end of the meeting to make masks optional because she, as a board member, took her own personal obvious opinion aside and looked at all the different factors we were looking at to try and make the best decision for our district. So I think you have to remember that too, that she voted for optional masking at the end of that very same meeting. So I'm going to allow her to give a statement or whatever she would like to do.
Barb, thank you. I was embarrassed that I lost my temper, but I'm wearing a mask, and I still think that masking is important. I worry about kids. I worry that maybe 10, 15 years from now, if they've had COVID, we don't know what the lasting effects are going to be, and that bothers me. So, like I said, I was embarrassed that I lost my temper, and that's all I can say. So thank you, Barb.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on from that to the next little misconception that I would like to make, that I think actually moved into sort of a rumor realm. And that is the word on the street that there is equipment missing from our technical department, and that some of our employees, and especially on the leadership team, have been taking them home and using them and selling them for their own gain. I think there's different versions of it out there. I see some of you sort of shocked. We're sort of shocked when we hear these things, and so I think probably there was some nugget of truth that, again, sort of caught fire and got through the misconception stage. So anybody, Nick, do you have any idea of any equipment that has been moved from our
No.
our
I'm aware of equipment that's been moved, but there's a reason why it's been moved, and we can show people where it is and why it's there. There's, the issue that I have is that a lot of things get pointed directly at me, and if any one of you have ever talked to me or know about me and what I do in this district, and the amount of money and time and resources I donate to this district. In fact, I buy machines for this district out of my own personal money. So when people are out spreading rumors about that stuff, it infuriates me. And I just really wonder what people are up to, if that is really what you spend your time doing. And, you know, I just think it's really crappy kind of way of going about things when you can literally walk in the front door, walk into my office, ask me the question, and I can show you and bring you right to things. And when that doesn't happen, nothing good comes of it.
Right.
And I wrote it in my letter on Friday to everybody. I've had personal conversations with people in this room about that, and I don't know why it continues to happen. I don't know if there's some vendetta out for me. I don't know what it's about, but it's something that I just don't know what the end game is. So you want to get rid of people that bend over backwards for your kids, donate equipment to them, basically, you know, fund their projects out of their own pocket, you know, and it's
right, and it's destructive
beyond
for
frustrating.
It's destructive for the school district. It's demoralizing for the staff. There's no positive purpose for it. So I would encourage anybody who hears something like that to find out about it. I mean, I know there are times where we place equipment someplace, didn't we replace some lathes with some employers for future apprenticeship opportunities? Don't know if that's where it started. But in any case, please, if you hear something, please come to the source and ask us. Then there's another one that, again, is sort of a demoralizing, horrible thing to hear on the street when your name is involved. And unfortunately, again, it's our leadership team. And this time it is Nick and Teal, and that they are stealing money from the district. How horrible would it be to find out, you know, to hear a rumor that you're stealing money from the district? And I believe that that one probably started from the nugget of the truth, which is that both Nick and Teal are away from the district a couple days a week. And I think probably the easiest would be the explanation from, do you want to take it, Teal?
She's going to echo.
No.
I'd love to take it. Can everybody see me and hear me?
Yes.
and the news camera. You'll love this too as well. So Algoma has been nationally recognized in 2017 as a Culture of Health community, in 2020 as an All-America City Award winner, and Algoma's been doing some pretty impressive work in the last decade, specifically since the Wellness Center and Fulls Tech area have been an extension of the school. We have a spectacular school to community model and have received in the last 3 years over $1 million in grant funds from some really awesome funders in Northeast Wisconsin, specifically the Greater Green Bay Community Foundation, as well as the Fox Valley Foundation area. Those are all funded by US Venture Open, by J.J. Keller, Theta Care, I'm probably missing a whole bunch of others. But they are supporters of Algoma, specifically the Algoma School District. And this year, they asked Nick and myself if we were able to support 2 other communities in thinking the way that we do. And why does this matter for Algoma? It's because an individual community can be isolated. And when we're isolated and not working together in a region, we can't make policy and advocacy change, and we can't have thriving communities. So we have been supporting Denmark and Sturgeon Bay so that we can collectively, just like our insurance consortium for school, we work with all other school districts in Northeast Wisconsin. We want to collectively work with other communities so that we can advance the work of thriving communities. So twice a week, Nick and I are gone, and I'm sure that our small community sees us riding in a vehicle together to other communities. We are not stealing money from the school. The grant funders are paying for our time away, so the school district does receive money for 2 full days a week for our time. And again, just like Nick said, my door is always open, and I would love to have conversations with anybody who thinks otherwise. But and I'll finalize this by saying funds that are coming in and out of the school, especially in grant funds, there's a many exchange of hands. So it's not just the school that has to approve costs and expenditures and revenues, it's also the grant foundation. We have lots of I's to dot and some T's to cross. So I will just say on a personal level, these rumors are really tough.
I bet.
And a distraction of the work to our youth and what we're really trying to do. So I know some of you, I'm looking at you in the audience, and you're friends of mine, and I hope that we can have an open conversation and support each other in what our community needs to continue to do. That's it.
Thanks, Jill.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that pretty much explains. So again, the school is getting reimbursed through the grants for the time that both Nick and Teal are away from the school. So I'm assuming that's where that misconception started. Another one is gifted and talented. I just want to make a comment about that. There's all these rumors, or I guess I would say misconception, about the fact saying that we do not have a gifted and talented program. And what I want to say is that if you look at our vision and our goals, we believe that every single student has gifts and talents, and that we want to give them every opportunity in our educational programming to reach their highest potential. And so, bottom line, I mean, we have more options. That's part of the reason that we opened the charter school. We have our Pathfinder, we have our traditional school, we have the first public charter school in Kewaunee or Door County, because we want to be able to give every kid the opportunities and bring them to the highest potential that they have and make education meaningful to them. And truly, I think they are only limited by their own motivation, because we look for absolutely every opportunity for them. And if there is a situation where a parent feels their child is not being recognized in a certain area, that is certainly something we want to know. it would start at the classroom level, you know, I mean, the teachers do their best to try and stimulate and offer additional things to kids that are maybe moving ahead from what the regular class is doing. So if we're missing something, that is definitely something we want to hear about. But please do not think we are not, just because we don't have a section that says gifted and talented, we are doing that every day with every student. And that is our goal as a district. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that?
Barb, can I add a little to that from the
Yes.
elementary perspective?
Yes, please.
Because I think a lot of the examples that people are most familiar with are more middle school, high school level. But we do have Jamie Robinson, who is our gifted and talented coordinator. And she has kind of helped us at an elementary level kind of develop these layers of support for our elementary students. So like you were talking about, Barb, the first layer would be definitely in the classroom. So if there's a student that is showing that they are ready for more of a challenge, that's something that can happen right in the classroom through reading groups, extension projects, independent studies, all different examples that I can think of. The next layer of that would be, we do have some students that grade accelerate for certain subjects. You know, obviously that's a parent-teacher partnership conversation that takes place. Definitely some strong communication needed there, but we do, for example, we have a kindergarten student right now that's going to second grade for reading and math. We have a first grader who's doing similar with different grade levels, so we have that. In very rare cases do we like grade accelerate at the elementary level. It has happened, but you know, there's the social aspect too as well. So Jamie Robinson is a great point of contact for that, and I would love for her to come in and kind of share her expertise in that area, because she does do a lot of great work with the students. But to your point, Barb, I would agree that if there is a parent that is questioning whether or not their child is being challenged in that way, definitely reach out to the classroom teacher and start that conversation and partnership there.
Okay. And then one of the things that Pat had actually brought up, and I think we will have Marie do it maybe under the rehab report, is, the special ed report, is people have no idea. We do have a higher percentage of special education students in our district than most, and we are absolutely dedicated to them. A large proportion of our budget does go to that, which can be a challenge for a small district. We also see marvelous results, and we're very excited about that. But most people have absolutely no idea how much goes into it from a district level, all the different teachers and everything. And Pat thought it would be a good idea to just sort of stress that. That's sort of a misconception, maybe not. Just sort of a clarification of what all goes into it. So that's all we're going to cover today. This meeting could go on forever, but I wanted to just sort of hit some of the things that have been a little hurtful and clarify those. We have a wonderful district. As Teal mentioned, we are recognized around the country. Nick was invited to Washington to be on a task force with the last administration. He's in close contact with our legislators and Mike Gallagher, and our district is being looked at as a model, and we have marvelous people, and if all we do is try and tear them down, we aren't going to have them any longer, and you want to think about that. So next time you hear something, say, where did you hear that, and how do you know, and let's find out. And if you hear something that you want us to address at a meeting, please do it that way too. Okay, moving on, public participation. We have a few people signed up here. Sue, is it Medkey?
Medkey, I think.
Okay, please.
Do you mind if I move so I don't have somebody behind me?
I speak wherever you would be comfortable, that's fine.
Thank you. My name is Sue Medke, and my husband Gary and I are residents of the Algoma School District. I think I'm gonna be your cheerleaders tonight, so maybe this is a good time. I would like to thank the school board, administration, teachers, and staff for the excellent job they are doing educating students of our district. One of the big accomplishments this year, as was mentioned before, is opening the charter school. Additional time and resources were put into planning and implementing it. Very few small schools in Wisconsin have their own charter school, something we should be very proud of. Even when there is harmony and agreement, teaching in the district have difficult jobs to do. Now with all the discord and objections that are going around, the district has a much harder job making things go as good as they do. So thank you for your dedication to our district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Charnel Preston.
So I'm Charnel Preston. I am a parent of a junior and sophomore at the Algoma High School. I'm also a nurse. And I'm here to speak against the mask mandate, even though I have a mask on. In healthcare, we look at risk versus benefit. And when it comes to the kids, I feel that the risks with wearing a mask, especially our young ones, a lot of it was brought up at the last meeting, that it can inhibit speech, auditory, psychological growth and development. And those are kind of important with the school district, I feel like. Whereas the benefit of masking our kids can decrease possibly the transmission of this virus, which according to our Wisconsin Department of Health Services website says 4 people under the age of 19 have passed away from COVID in the 19 months that COVID's been around, which according to their published data, which the last one was 2018, would barely make it on the top 10 for the same age group. So it is very low risk for our children. And on top of that, the high-risk family members that they may be exposed to can get the vaccine. You're probably wondering why I'm wearing a mask. Well, I'm wearing a mask because I'm considered a close contact. I had a kid that's been out, returned to school today. But as a bedside nurse, I was allowed to continue working with a mask on. So if the masks work for no symptom infected people, then it should be fine for maybe infected people with no symptoms. So I felt like I needed to come in and just share my experience.
Amanda Bliss.
That's me. Kind of here for the same purpose, just asking you to continue to leave the mask optional. We have 2 small kids in school who are in school this year. Last year we virtually taught them from home all year, which was a struggle not only for us but for the kids, because we still worked full-time jobs. So working all day and then coming home and trying to get them to settle down and eat supper and then do all of their schoolwork at the end of the day is a lot to do. Granted, that was our choice because we felt that was what we needed to do to get them their education without masking them the whole day. Having them back in school this year has made a world of difference. They go to school, they can see their friends, actually see their friends, they can play with their friends, they can be in groups and work, together and learn from each other, and it's made a lot of difference. So I ask you to keep masking optional. The other thing is maybe take a different look at how you handle kids with close contacts. Our youngest son was just home for 7 days to quarantine because he was a close contact. He's 5 years old, so when I picked him up from school, he had no idea why he was going home. He's not sick, he wants to be at school learning and be with his friends, so every day, waking him up, getting him ready to go somewhere else and not to school was, why can't I go to school? Well, buddy, you were by someone that was sick, so, and then every day, well, I'm not sick, I know that. So maybe there's a different way that we can, maybe keep the healthy kids in school so they continue to get an education instead of sending them home. Monitor their symptoms closely. If they're not sick and don't show any symptoms, I think they should be able to be in school. If they're sick, then they should be home by all means, but if there's a way to monitor the kids and keep them in school instead of home, I think that's best for everybody. It's best for the kids, and then the parents aren't struggling to find care for 7 days or having to take off of work for 7 days. It just keeps the routine running smoothly and everyone, knows what they're supposed to be doing. There is another district in the county that uses different guidelines. They keep, kids that are in close contact, they self-monitor. And if they have no symptoms, they continue to go to school. And if they have symptoms, then that's when they stay home and for the days that they're sick, and then they can go back to school once they're better. I do have a screenshot of the guidelines that they follow if anyone is interested in taking a look at that. The last thing is the dashboard on the school website. It's there, but it doesn't provide a lot of data. There's no dates. It doesn't really show when the data is from, if it's up to date every day or if it's from a week ago. It doesn't tell us that. So maybe if we could get maybe a line graph or a chart to show like a trend, like if there's more cases when school started and there's less now, kind of show where we've been and where we're going to help us see what's happening. That's pretty much all I have. Thank you.
Is this
Was that a Roxy?
Ray or Roy?
Rory?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Ann Schmitz, I don't know you. I don't claim to know who you are or anything about your character based off a 30-second clip. I know you've done a lot of good in this community. I want to forgive you, but your apology did not even involve the words, "I'm sorry." It was, "I'm embarrassed." Okay? What you said was unforgivable. It was awful. Your default argument to somebody that you disagree with is, "I don't care anymore. Your kids can just die." It should be disqualifying you from your position. Somebody who feels that way has no business being around how teaching or deciding how kids learn or where they learn or what they learn or anything about kids and learning. It's just awful. As far as the masks go, Barb, I see all these people come up here and they have articulated scientific facts. They come up with statistics and you shoot them down by saying you're not an expert. And you even did it to one of the board members last meeting. You say, "You're not an expert. I trust the experts." Okay? You got to do better than that. Okay? Because these same experts, they shut us in our house when they know that sunlight and fresh air build immune systems. They close down our businesses and told us to fend for ourselves. These same experts, people were having kids in the hospital and the dad couldn't even be in the room. They denied them that. They had these people arrested for going to church. These are the experts that you claim. You have to do better than you're not an expert, I trust the experts. Because the experts have cried wolf so many times, and it hasn't worked. You have to engage with these parents and their concerns. Because they're bringing up valid points, and you're just pushing them aside. It can't be that way anymore. Thank you.
David Marrero.
That's me.
Hi.
So, I want to say thank you to the board. I think that section in the beginning where we talk about misconceptions and rumors is great. As a whole, the Algoma School District is awesome. My kids love going to school. They love their teachers. They love their principals. And it's you guys that are making that work and happen, which is great. My purpose for speaking today is more directed at the comment that was made by Ann Schmitz at the last meeting. To echo what Rory said, it was reprehensible. And I think we as parents have taught our children that we have to be accountable for our actions, and words actually mean something. And when we say them, we're responsible for what comes after.
Amen.
And in the Army, we have a saying, do and say what you think your rank can afford, but expect the consequences. Because of what you said, I'm respectfully, on behalf of all of us parents, asking for your resignation, effective immediately. And that's all I have to say.
Jody Perrins.
I have served and testified before state agencies, the state legislature, boards, county agencies, and I've served locally. Last month was my first time at a school board meeting, and I was appalled at what I saw. What was reprehensible was the way that this crowd badgered, bullied this board. Never, in all of my years at other levels of government, have I seen this allowed. There's typically no applause. There was snickering when people referred to the CDC, and that should never, ever happen. What happened to the morals of this community? What happened to us taking care of each other? That was absolutely ridiculous. For you to go after Ann, who has given 16 years on this board, and more as a librarian and a bus driver, for coming out and blurting out something that she does not feel in her heart, that's what's reprehensible. Where's the grace for this? For the school board, I agree with the statement that there should be experts here. Somebody who's coming up and saying, I'm a nurse. Nope, not taking you for, but you come up and say nurse, we have no idea whether they're nurses or not. Okay? Ms. Wallman, you stated something last month as a fact, saying that you had gotten it from the CDC guideline, CDC website. And in fact, a fact check on it showed that it was false and misleading information that had been proven on multiple sites as having been misleading information, not from last summer, where you said 85% of the people that had COVID last summer were maskers. It's actually a year-old data. It's a year old from the summer of 2020, not 2021. And it was debunked as being false because it was spread across a conservative news outlet and by a conservative politician. I would respectfully ask that you look back at that and do a fact check and take that back as having approved it as fact.
I'll look.
Because
Thank
that's
you.
the fear that is the scary part of not having experts, okay, and doing our own research on it.
I will, thank you.
Thank you. And I just think that we all have to get off of this. These guys are doing the best they can. Our teachers are doing the best that they can. This is ridiculous. The rumors that Nick and Teal and everybody else is doing something underhanded, don't we have better things to do with our time? Don't we have better things to do with our kids? We're not asking for a mask mandate. We're just asking for good guidelines and something that teachers can say this is black or white and get back to education. So I thank you very much for that, but people, come on, cut some grace here.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the extent of people who wanted to speak. We will move on to board president announcements. I would like to say at this time, I think probably being a small district, everyone is aware that our business manager, Jason Malott, chose to move north to Southern Door, I wanted to wish him well. He was with our district for as long as I can remember. I mean, he basically started out in high school here, had a proficiency in technology, grew as our technology director, probably was responsible for half the cabling in the ceilings. He had a passion for technology, and he put his heart and soul in it and did a great job in that. As we like to do in this district, we like to grow our own, and our previous business manager, Gail Hawk, when she knew she was going to be retiring, she recognized his capabilities. And so we groomed him to replace her. We put him through school, and he then moved on to be our business manager and served this district in that capacity. So he put in decades in this district, and I would like to thank him for the positive things that he did. And also, I would like to let the community know that in a small district, every leadership position wears many hats. And so when somebody like Jason leaves, it puts a big hole in the district and even more pressure on the leadership team that remains. So we are going to do our best to fill all the different shoes that, because again, he had many hats. We wish him well. We are going to do our best. The lion's share falls on Nick once again, and we will take our time and get the right person to fill his shoes. You had mentioned about the meeting. That was the only other thing I was going to remind people for the regional meeting. If you didn't see it any other time, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, which is what we referred to as WASBA before. We try not to use those terms without defining them. That regional meeting, which is virtual, is 7 p.m. this Wednesday. Okay, moving on, administration reports. Superintendent Business Manager report. Nick.
So I will start with our revenue limit worksheet, which if you look at public schools in the state of Wisconsin, this is what it all comes down to. We don't get any of we get information that pre-populates some of this, but the big thing is that we have to wait for the state to give us our certified general aid on October 15th, which is also Jason's last day. So this is a monumental task, everybody. So just bear with me. The highlights that I want to point out to you is that the enrollment for our district is increasing, which is a positive sign. If you followed the school district from when I started here, we're well over 140 more students than when I started here. We bring in many kids through open enrollment, and we've landed over 700 for the last many years. 2020 obviously impacted everybody. It was the first year in a long time that we were below 700. We were at 686. So 718 should be a number you stick in the back of your head. And that basically, just so everybody can see this, and it's all going to be, if you want, you can look at it right along with me as we go through it. But all of that information gets put into the revenue limit. So the benefit for you as a taxpayer is that our equalized value went up about 5% from last year to an equalized value, meaning what basically the value of property is in our entire school district. $418 million, $740,177. That's a significant number, and it's an important number to understand because the higher that number is, the less you pay in taxes, okay? When you go over to the other side, just like in the budget hearing, I wanted to point out that for years, we have talked about the impact of private school voucher program and how that is money that is taken directly from us to fund private voucher schools. So public money used to fund private voucher schools. You should be upset about that if you're not. This year saw a drastic decrease to 59,000. It was almost 80,000 last year. Basically, that's 2 teaching positions for a school district. So it has an impact on what we do. Down on the bottom part of our revenue limit worksheet, we were basically allowed to levy $2,457,254 from the state, and then the only 2 other options that we have is we can add to our Fund 39 referendum debt. So what we do, and we have been doing for years, is paying off that referendum sooner rather than later. So the benefit to the district is that you will have an opportunity much sooner to reissue debt, right, to keep your mill rate stable. And then obviously, the last time we did this, I think we got a lot of bang for our buck. We added on to the elementary school, did a ton of improvements to the district. Obviously paying off your debt is a responsible thing to do, and we're way ahead of schedule on that.
Saves a lot of interest.
Yes, it
Ton
does.
of interest. So, you probably will hear Fund 39 talked about a lot. What we do is we contribute to that fund, and this word defeasance comes up, and that is the actual act of paying off debt early. It is incredibly expensive from a legal standpoint. So what we do is we take multiple years and consolidate it into Fund 39, and then when it makes the most sense, we then pursue the act of defeasing. So it could sit there for multiple years, and then when it is makes the most sense financially, then we go ahead and do it. So we've defeased each of the last 2 years as well. So this will be the 3rd year we've done that.
And that also includes our debt payment that we
Correct.
have to do.
Correct. And then the last thing that we can do is Fund 80, it's community services. So if any of you have visited the Wellness Center, if any of you have participated in community band, middle school athletics, the list goes on and on. That is Fund 80. It's basically community services, community support that we offer. Really no change to that. I think we manage Fund 80 as good as anybody, and I think the bang for your buck again as a taxpayer is pretty obvious. That's the revenue limit worksheet. I will add, just like I said in my letter on Friday to school district community, this year marks the 5th straight year that we've decreased our mill rate, which impacts what you pay in taxes. So that's 5 straight years in a row that we've decreased taxes. This year we're at $8.67. In comparison, the state average is $9.22. So I think you're getting a hell of a value on your school district. 2021-22 budget. This is a monster. You ask any accountant whether they want to do school finance work, they'll run away from you at a high rate of speed because it is incredibly complex and it takes a lot of time and everything is a code. But I'm just going to hit on big ticket items for this year. our 21-22 budget this year. Total revenue, $8,902,521. That's a budget. Just like we said at the budget hearing, we budget worst-case scenario. And I like to tell people, our audited 19-20 school year, we spent $8,177,303. So you can see that we are managing the resources that we are afforded and doing the best that we possibly can do with that. I will also tell everybody in the room that there's lots of banter and talk about ESSER funding and how much ESSER funding the school district got. And that's a slight bend on fact. So ESSER 2 funding and ESSER 3 funding, we didn't get that money. So we didn't get ESSER 2 $384,104. Okay, we won't get ESSER 3 $862,593. ESSER 3 is a plan that actually all of the people in the room and everybody in the community actually has to contribute to. Then we have to submit it, then we have to have that approved before we can then spend the money out of our direct budget and get reimbursed for it. ESSER 2 funding has a 26-page document of allowable expenditures, okay? 26 pages of what we can do and what we can't do, all right? So for anything that we do related to ESSER 2, it has to meet the guidelines of 26 pages. And then we also have to expend that money first out of our budget and then get reimbursed from the state, which, if you've ever dealt with the state and DPI, they're not real quick to return that, okay? So the issue is that if we go through the school year and make an expenditure in the spring, right, related to ESSER 2, and we end our fiscal year June 30th, and the state decides to say, I'll get back to you in 6 months, whose budget's screwed? Ours, okay? A lot of people don't understand that, so you have to look at ESSER 2 funding and ESSER 3 funding as it's an allotment that we can access if we have the plan, if we meet all of these requirements. And if you really want some wonderful reading, that 26-page document would really light some fires with some of you, I'm sure, okay? Because as you can imagine, you can't get this money unless this, right? You can't get this unless this. So 26 pages worth of information like that is really difficult to navigate, okay? And that's ESSER 2. ESSER 3 is going to be way worse, okay? So in ESSER 3, you have to have evidence-based practices that are 20% of your expenditure, okay? We've sat for years and talked about evidence-based strategies generally don't work. Because in a small school district, we have to be flexible, we have to maneuver very quickly about how to do things, and you can't even find the people to do the evidence-based practices, so how are we gonna be able to access some of that, right? So I'm sure some of you are wanting to sign up to be superintendent, knowing all that fun you could potentially deal with, but that is our budget. Again, ton of stuff that's going into this, and like Barb said, obviously, I don't think there is a worse time in the school year for things like that to happen, but we are, in fact, moving forward, and I'm pretty proud of our staff for being able to pull this off, to have a, finance committee meeting the Monday after your business manager leaves, to have a budget hearing before this meeting, and then turn around and approve this budget today is pretty miraculous. So there's a lot of people besides me that pour their heart and soul into this stuff, and takes a lot of eyeballs and things to look at and check over, because we understand that it's public school, right? And everybody has their eyes on it, and what we do is going to be criticized to the nth degree. So we want to make sure it's right, and I believe that we have provided a budget that meets the needs of the school district currently and moving forward. So that's where I'm at with that. And I will just add from my superintendent role that I still maintain the fact that we're having a great school year. We have, fall sports seasons that are just concluding, having homecoming and all those events go off. I think our kids are benefiting from all of that, and best part of my day is I get to spend some time with some of them in the afternoon, one-on-one, and work with them. So that can't be lost in all the stuff that we are doing and all the stuff that we are having conversations about. The fact of the matter is that kids are in school, they are learning, they are socializing with each other, and they are getting better every single day. So that's what we show up to do as educators, and I hope that that's the focus for everybody as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job on the business manager report. Okay, we'll move on. Elementary principals report.
All right, I am gonna switch gears just a little bit. I gave each of you a two-sided document. It's an evaluation of the Achievement Gap Reduction Program. So historically, this program used to be referred to as the SAGE program, but about 8 or so years ago, it switched over to AGR. The purpose of the program is to basically close the achievement gaps for students in grades K through 3. The program also looks at attendance, and they also look at attendance and also suspension rate for students in grades K through 3, which is an interesting concept and discussion point in and of itself, but that is what they're looking at. And basically the premise is that if you implement the strategies of reduced class size, coaching within the classroom, and one-on-one tutoring with students who need it, a combination of those strategies will close the achievement gap for those students, improve attendance, and decrease the rate of student suspension. So each year DPI has released a summary of their findings, so that's what I have provided for you. The two charts that I want to point out to you, the first one is on the first page in the bottom right corner. This one shows AGR's impact on student academic growth, on test score growth in both reading and math. You'll see that for all grade levels besides kindergarten, there is no statistically significant impact. The program has no statistically significant impact on math and reading achievement in grades 1 through 3, but does have a small statistical significant impact on reading in grade kindergarten. And then there is no statistically significant impact on suspension rate or absentee rate for anyone in grades K through 3. So thought that was interesting. And then this pie chart of sorts is kind of an interesting one as well. School districts are only required to implement one strategy per classroom, but you do have the flexibility to implement up to 3 strategies, so you could combine all of them. So they're trying to track, is one strategy less impactful than if you were to do all 3, but there, again, really isn't any statistically significant impact at that point. I will add that there is a very, very long document that if you're interested in reading about more, that I perused through, that is also available on the DPI website, but it just kind of goes more into some of the obstacles and barriers that the program has had related to, excessive testing, COVID and impact on schools in that sense. So interesting findings, but also not surprising findings for the past year or so. So I just wanted to share that because we do talk about that throughout the year at the elementary school. A couple of exciting things and bright spots for the elementary school. Last Wednesday, we had some additional playground equipment installed specifically for some of our younger students. So if you remember me talking about this a couple months ago, we, in partnership with the PTS, raised some funds, and then with a generous match from the school district, we were able to provide some additional equipment for our students as young as 3. So that went in on Wednesday. The kids were able to play on it today. There is a new swing structure, and we can't install the swings for 2 more weeks yet. But it's, if you take a drive past the elementary school, it fits in really nicely. It's a really wonderful addition for our students. So thank you to the PTS for helping to obtain that for our students. Parent-teacher conferences are coming up on Thursday, November 18. Parents can schedule those between 3:30 and 6:30.
I'm sorry, when did you say that was?
November 18th, which is a Thursday. Some teachers have already started reaching out to families to sign up for those, and some are doing that yet this week. So be on the lookout for that. A couple of other October AES activities that have just been kind of fun. The peer leaders, 5th and 6th grade peer leaders, organized and ran a pumpkin contest. So each classroom received a pumpkin. They had free reign to decorate it however they wanted, created a display in the hallway, and then parents, families, students, teachers were able to vote on those. The results are not in yet, so I don't have an outcome of that, but definitely some creativity went into that. The peer leaders are also organizing a boxed food drive. So they have been asking for boxed items to be donated to go towards the backpack program. Angie Kondersky has been working with the church on that. Later this week, the plan is to kind of set those up in like a domino chain and tip them over throughout the school. I don't know, it's been kind of interesting.
So that's versus canned foods?
Yes.
And so what kind of boxed items are we?
Anything in a box, honestly. Yep. You'd be surprised how many non-boxed items we've gotten so far, so we're gonna have to be a little bit
So I
creative.
suppose cereals and
anything
mac and cheese,
Yep.
all those kinds of things.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything is
Got it.
helpful. This week is Red Ribbon Week, so we have a dress-up day for each day of the week for that, and then of course culminating at the end of the week with our Halloween festivities to take place on Friday. And then one last thing that's not on the agenda, but I did want to mention, we are moving forward with holding our Veterans Day program in person again this year. So that will be on Thursday, November 11th at 1:30 p.m. We are not going to be hosting a lunch this year. We're just going to start right with the program. So anyone interested in attending that can call the elementary school and RSVP. We're trying to figure out a way to live stream that as well, so that those who would feel more comfortable attending virtually still have the option to do that. So that's all I have.
Good. Questions or comments for Katie? Thank you. So who's going to give the middle school, high school principals report? I guess
I'll
Katie.
add that to my list.
Yeah, she's stuck
there.
at an airport with many delayed
Is
flights.
she coming through Chicago?
Yes.
My son's stuck there with her, I think.
All right, so I'll just read verbatim what she provided to me today. Middle school, high school is bringing back scheduling night, Wednesday, February 23rd. This night in the past has been very successful in giving students more choice in scheduling their classes, as well as having more parent involvement in helping their students schedule for their future. It's a great opportunity for parents to engage in conversations with teachers and learn more of what our school has to offer for learning paths for their child. Sub shortages continue to impact both the elementary and the middle school, high school. She is grateful that we have some amazing staff members that are willing to step in when need be, and it's getting to be a little overwhelming because it's every single day, and just trying to give some reprieve to people is necessary. Looking into incentives for getting and retaining subs, as well as how to show our appreciation to our staff for always doing what is best for our students. And then lastly, we currently have quite a few of our middle school, high school staff members in a book club that meets every 2 weeks after school, and they are reading What Happened to You. It's basically a book about the effects of trauma has on the brain and why people may act the way that they do. It's personally given her a really great insight on student behavior. She's been fascinated learning about the science of the brain and how it works. The book really focuses on asking the question of what happened to you versus what's wrong with you when dealing with extensive and excessive behavior. I think everybody in the book club would recommend the book to anyone who works with humans on a daily basis. So,
With humans, that's a wide group.
yeah.
The other thing I'm going to say in terms of the sub shortage, because I would love this to be spread around the community, because every school district is short, there are some different regulations in terms of who can sub. I know that because my daughter, who has a degree in media communication development and, has always been in marketing and with different big companies, looked into it. And if you have a degree in almost anything, you are able to take a fairly short certification course through probably CISA, through DPI. It's short, if you have that degree. And then you are able to be a sub. And given, I am sure we have lots of really talented people in our community that may have degrees and may have some time on their hands. I mean, a sub position is basically the sub determines when they're gonna work. And like Nick was saying, especially during this time right now with the pandemic and more absences, every school district is just screaming for them. So we would love to have people who love children, and I think that would be everybody here. If you have any extra time, if you have a degree, please look into it. We can help you look into it if you're interested. I don't know the time frame. Do you know the time frame? I wish I did, in terms of how long it takes to do that. But it's short.
Expedited pretty fast.
Yeah, it's quite fast. And it would definitely, it's an income, but it's also would fulfill a great need in our district. So a little plug for that.
And if you like driving school buses and have a CDL, you could also help us out in that regard, because that is another area where it's just incredibly difficult to find people in that capacity. So,
CDL means what?
commercial driver's license.
Oh.
And then you just bus endorsement, and we walk people through that as quickly as we possibly can, get them set up. Even if you can just only drive in the morning, all of our routes are less than an hour. You get paid for 2, so $44 for less than an hour worth of work. Obviously, getting our kids to school is an important thing, so we need to have bus drivers. Also getting them to events that happen after school, we need bus drivers for as well. So I know every person on the admin team is moonlighted as a bus driver in some type of way, shape, or form, not necessarily driving a bus, but vans, etc., just so that we can get our kids to where they need to be. But just like subs, bus drivers are also in short supply.
So spread the word. Okay, moving on to special ed report. Marie.
Sure, I will do my best to explain, as you requested, essentially what goes into special education. There's a lot of moving parts, and with it being such a significant part of our budget, as I mentioned at the last meeting, we have roughly 17% of our students in this district that receive specialized instruction with an individualized education plan or an IEP. What that entails could be as little as 15 minutes a week with like speech and language, all the way up to meeting somebody with them essentially throughout the whole day. At the elementary school, we do have at least 5 students that require close to one-to-one support for the majority of the school day. So when you're looking at our special ed staff in that building, we currently have 5, now 6 special ed teachers and 8 paraprofessionals for roughly 18% of our students. And like I said, it could be as little as just one really good service, or needing multiple things such as speech and language, occupational therapy, physical therapy. We do have some students that have deaf and hard of hearing instruction, or an audiologist that we hire in from CISA. A lot of our students require transportation to and from school using our van, and adaptive physical education is another area. So you're looking at a lot of different avenues of expenditures for these students, depending on what their needs are. Also, I mean, our district is amazing with trying, same with our discussion for gifted and talented students. For our special education students, we really look at what each individual student needs to be most successful, and we've done some really creative things in our district for providing more functional instruction for students who would really benefit from that. 2 of the special ed teachers down at the elementary school are experimenting with something called Fabulous Fridays this year, and they are hoping to take some of our students out into the community to learn some of these functional skills, practicing them in the school, and then taking them out to a field trip. So for example, last Friday, they had a trial run with a movie. So in the auditorium, they practiced the skills of the ticket transaction and paying for pretend snacks with pretend money, so that they can transfer and generalize those skills into the community when they go this Friday to an actual movie theater. So just a lot of moving parts, and like you said, those are just some flip notes to start, but really I could talk about special education
Well,
all
and
day.
beyond the designated special ed staff, I think Pat was also wanting to let people realize what every teacher's.
Well,
Sure.
because I know it was brought up about mental health at the last meeting. What are we doing for mental health? And we probably are one of the district that does the most for mental health. With just all the programs that we, I know there's 5th and 6th grade, I think, had a program, I think they still do, for kids, I'm not sure, in the morning. To try
What
to get them,
matters time in the
to
morning.
settle them down, because some kids don't come from the best, you know, they don't have the best family life. And so some kids aren't just ready to come to school and sit down and learn right away. They need a little time to decompose, you know, to come down a little bit. And so there's so many different things that we do for mental health.
Yeah.
The after-school program, Wolf Den, is a perfect example. So,
And going off of what you said too, we also, this isn't special ed related, but we also have a breakfast club in the morning that's similar to what you're alluding to. For some students that would just really need to start their morning in more of a community style, they eat breakfast together, round table. They practice basic hygiene, brushing their teeth. They they look forward to that time. They actually, the staff that run that feel like they have to kind of shoo the students back to class because they want that togetherness time. And it's really a beautiful thing. But that all alludes to working towards student mental health and making sure that they're ready to start their day on a positive note.
Well, and again, you talk about the mental health that we are doing in our district. For the most part, those are programs and things that our staff is doing.
or
To the-
kids, or our students.
Or
Yeah.
our older students with the younger students, and that isn't all by choice. As Nick was saying, or even you said, $100 million of something is supposed to go to mental health. Wouldn't it be lovely if there were mental health professionals out there available that we could use that money for? It is a staffing issue. You know, they just aren't out there. So our district is being very creative in trying to meet some of these needs. But again, it's because we have such dedicated leadership, such dedicated teachers and paraprofessionals and aides and all the way down to the, janitorial staff. Everybody works together to make this a positive experience for all of our students, and we as a board are very thankful for that. Anything else you wanted to say on your special ed report?
Nothing unless you had any questions for me.
Anybody? I guess, what expenditure for special ed this year? I do too. $1,068,209. That's out of an $8 million total budget.
That's not covered by the state, that's covered by us.
Because between the state and the federal reimbursement, that's supposed to be much higher, we get about 11% back for our costs. So the rest of it is on us, and we have to make it happen, and we do. And we're happy to, because every child has value. Okay. Moving
You
on.
look like you want to say something. Oh, okay.
He's had to talk enough.
Okay.
Live Algoma monthly update, that would be UTL.
That's me. There's a lot of connections. You guys know my brain is firing with them, but I wanted to circle back on two things that I heard. Katie Sturby was talking about the AGR reporting and this, science-based evidence program that is not showing growth with our youth. And we have programs that are showing growth with our youth. Pat just mentioned a few. And in regards to that, it is our school to community efforts. We know by evidence that relationships, mentorship, connections, sense of purpose, and belonging matter. And so we have lots of programs that are based upon that, whether it's Wolf Tech, whether it's Wolf Den, whether it's the Wellness Center, programming in our traditional school, what our legacies or what our new charter pathway is all framed against. And my report for Live Algoma is just that. We are being recognized, not just regionally, not just nationally, internationally. We have people from Sweden that are calling to ask how we are doing this in our community. And on Wednesday, we do have a tour from some individuals in Northeast Wisconsin, again, to see some of the ways that we're thinking differently and developing our own science-based evidence programs. This is why we're also supporting other communities so that we can tell the state that mental health, for example, needs to be redefined, that what we are doing is helping the mental health of our youth and our staff and our community members. And I would love to talk with anybody more about that or have your help in that. But that's just a segue into, this tour where people are coming to see some of these programs, specifically Wolf Den, but also our Wellness Center, how we have youth interact with adults, we have youth and adults interact with adults with disabilities, we have co-shared classes. So leading into the Wellness Center, which is one big puzzle piece to Live Algoma, I wanted to share a few really great bright spots that are happening. Prior to COVID, we had about 750 members, paid members. And I say paid, I'm going to put quotation marks because only about 10% of our population pays full price out of pocket. The rest is covered by insurance or corporate accounts or scholarships or any other ways that we can help them. But then COVID happened and our sense of community kind of was dismantled a little bit, and we're getting back to that. So our chair-based exercise classes are now running Monday, Wednesday, Friday with our partnership with Door County Medical Center. And we're pushing it back to almost 30 people attending those chair classes, looking to almost get a bigger room because we're getting too close together. We also have boot camp early in the morning, so for anybody who wants to join boot camp, it's at 5:45 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have a partnership with UW Extension called Strong Bodies, and this is where maybe you have to sit in a chair, you're stretching, trying to be a little bit more mobile. This is for our aging population, but also our adults with disabilities that maybe aren't as mobile as they would like to be. And then we're starting our eShore classes again. What that means is our eShore clients come over, our youth in high school develop ways they can interact with them, whether it's classes or they play games together. So yet again, another way that we view supporting youth and their mental health is by making connections with others. And then we have a winter's farmers market scheduled indoor on Saturday, December 18th from 9 to 2. And we're getting a lot of excitement around that, just to see that come back into the center and get people from other areas. So if you are a vendor, we welcome you to call the center and sign up for a spot with Zach. Or if you're a participant and want to come buy some holiday gifts, we'll see you on Saturday, December 18th at 9. And I think I'm complete with Live Algoma. Yeah, I was gonna go right into the next one, but I'll stop unless there's questions.
Good job.
Thanks, Jill.
Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead and go to the Algoma Venture Academy, which of course is our charter school.
For charter school, we just got word from the Wisconsin Resource Center for Charter Schools, that is the charter division of the DPI in the state. They are showcasing Algoma Venture Academy in their newsletter as a bright spot charter school. They're really amazed at our youth in just 2 short months being able to navigate our online program that is called HeadRush. So HeadRush is the place where our students are showcasing what they're working on in terms of project-based learning. And what's really cool with that is our students are attaching what we call learning targets, or in other words, Wisconsin state standards. They are the ones that are navigating that language. They are attaching what they're learning to their projects, and that's how they're obtaining credit. And we call him Charter Nick, but our representative said that we are one of the first charter schools that he has worked with, and to see the success of our students in just, I will even give it 7 weeks, and their navigation and how well they're doing on their project-based learning has been a bright spot in the state of Wisconsin, which is no surprise. I wish Abby was still in the room, so I was going to have her talk about it a little bit. The other thing that they're showcasing besides HeadRush are our math scores. Very transparently, when our students came to school the first week, we have 23 enrolled students, and all but 2 scored below grade level in math. To date, every single student are on par of growth and are actually exceeding their growth in a program that we use called Alex Math. It's an online math program which goes at their pace. So if they're succeeding in a certain area, they can keep going, and if they're struggling in a certain area, they can spend time and dedication on there. So they have, and I'll give that 6 weeks, maybe 5, using that Alex online math program. They have already succeeded in some other areas of growth. So that's really super. And then last but not least, I want to talk about mental health, because they're also going to be showcasing a bright spot in the Venture Academy with that. Before the beginning of the school year, we met with almost all of our students one-on-one and their parents or guardians, and about half of the 23 students self-reported that they had a daily occurrence last year that often led to disruptive behaviors, fluency issues, or withdrawals from other peers or staff members or community. As of today, not a single one of those students have displayed any of those aforementioned behaviors or truancy issues, mental health breakdowns in bathrooms, anxiety issues that were the same as last year. So it is an additional learning pathway that is working for some of our students that we knew, which was the reason that we had to, during COVID and all the fun times we've been having the last 2 years, we had to do it. We had to open it up because it was the right thing to do. 2 to 3 years from now, we hope that we can also open a charter pathway at the elementary level to provide the same opportunity once we kind of get our wiggles out here and fail forward and learn what works and what doesn't. That's it, but I just wanted to give some bright spots, and that will be recognized in the state. And next board meeting, I do want to ground us in some measurements and really concrete things of how the state is holding us accountable. Public charter schools, we have a lot of autonomy. So for all of those in the room, I mean, the purpose of a public charter is to be innovative and have autonomy and to test things and to fail forward in an informed traditional setting of some best practices. But with that comes some really high stakes. We are watched with everything that we are doing. Our students know that we have to have measurements that meet the flexibility that we get. So I just wanted to, mention that next board meeting, I'll make sure we bring some of that measurement dashboards that we can see, and then that way we can start to inform, you guys as the school board of what might be working and what's not working. And with that, I'm complete.
Teal, I'm the new note taker. Who is showcasing this? The Adventure Academy?
The Wisconsin Resource Center for Charter Schools, so WRCCS, in their newsletter. And
Okay.
when I receive it, I can definitely forward it on.
Just text me what the acronym, what the words are, and I'll be fine. I'm new
Yeah.
at this.
And again, you know, I
Okay.
commend you and all the others that put all that hard work. There was a lot of effort and time in putting a charter school together. And as you mentioned, during COVID, which already put a huge stress on the school district in terms of being creative and trying to maintain the education of our kids. So I'm thrilled that it's going as well as it is.
Yeah, it's going great, and I wanna, I'll give a misconception, it just popped in my brain, but, as far as funding, we are allowed a little bit more latitude only because we received a grant, a significant grant from, DPI to open up the public charter school. So we're allowed the capacity to go on a little bit more field excursions. If the student needs something for their projects, we have that. That's not rested upon our general budget within the school. That's based on per pupil, just the same as it would be based per pupil in a legacy school. So I just want to clarify that. Sometimes we get questions like, oh, well, the charter school gets to go, you know, on this field trip. Well, it's because of the grants that we applied for and that we received.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions or further comments on that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to committee reports. The Finance Committee met.
Okay, we met last Monday. I'm not gonna go over the budget because Nick did just a nice job on it, but we are recommending approval to the full board. I want to talk just a little bit more about ESSER funds because that question was brought up and he touched on that too. When I say ESSER, it's elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds, but you don't want to keep saying that all, so you just say ESSER funds. And there's ESSER 1, 2, and 3. ESSER 1 funds was available to us from March 2020 through September of 2022. Our allotment was $97,406 that we could access money. And then part of that money had to be given to parochial schools if they applied for it. And we did have one that did, so $6,000 of that went. We spent, and I know they want to know what we spent, what the money was spent on. Most of it was, well, there was cleaning supplies, masks, the plastic partitions, but the majority of the money was spent for technology so that we could teach virtually to the kids. Ironically, you spend the money, you gotta take it out of your budget, and then you submit it to the DPI, like Nick said, and then hopefully you'll get money back in a timely manner. We're still waiting for funds from that ESSER 1 to be reimbursed to the district.
And that doesn't mean we didn't submit it timely.
No,
means-
it just means we're still waiting, The ESSER 2 funds, well, we're taking the air filtration systems out of the ESSER 2. We're gonna submit it, and I talked to Jason a little bit about this before he left, and he said hopefully we'll get the money before the end of the first quarter next year. Hopefully. So that, the DPI moves a little slow. And then like Nick said, the ESSER 3 funds, $860,000, well, there's so many strings attached to that. We have access to it, but don't look for this money in the budget. It's not going to be there, because it's a reimbursement thing. You spend it and then you get reimbursed. Ironically, when the money first came out, that they were available to us, to school districts, the DPI hadn't even made a code up for it yet. So then there's another accounting area, you gotta put it someplace else, and then when the code is there, then you gotta move it to that. It was an accounting nightmare. So, if anybody's got any questions about this or anything else, I urge you to talk to Nick, because his door's
Well,
always been open,
And there's lots of information online too. There's everything you'd want to know about it. And
Right, but I mean, if you look at this, you think, okay, this is what your district got.
Yeah.
Well, not really.
no.
Not really. That's really not what we got. That's what we have access to.
And not to say that we aren't going to study those 26 pages and see if there is some way that our district can benefit from these next ESSER funds. We're not scared by that kind of requirement because almost everything we do is legislated. One of the things that I think Nick mentioned, and I think it's ESSER 3, the big one, is going to involve community input. It requires it. So we will be at some point, because that one, we have funds until what, 2024?
Yep.
So that is one we're gonna be looking at, and we are going to be figuring out ways that the community will probably form some kind of a community advisory group or something, so that everybody can look at what we're thinking we might wanna use it for, get input on that kind of thing. So that'll be a stay tuned for as we wade through it and see what might apply to our district, and then open it up to, you know, like I said, the community for additional input and that kind of thing.
You know,
So,
each one of these ESSER 3s, they 1, 2, and 3, they were available March 13th, 2020 for each one of them. But the ESSER 3 funds, you can't access them yet.
Right.
So, you know, the dates are misleading.
that too, yes.
Yeah. You know, you think March 13th it's available, and it's not. So,
I would just add that the application for ESSER 3 hasn't even opened yet. They won't even give us a time when it will be open. They're saying November, but there's no indication that that will happen. And then we have 90 days to submit our application thereafter. And like I said before, some of you will be interested. I'll just read it verbatim. The ESSER funds must be developed in consultation with local stakeholders, and the LEA must take public comment into account when developing the plan. The plan must be made with publicly available on the LEA's website, and the plan must describe how the local education agency will maintain the health and safety of students, educators, and other staff, the extent to which the LEA has adopted policies regarding safety recommendations established by the CDC, how the LEA will ensure continuity of services for student academic needs, as well as student and staff social, emotional, and mental health needs. And all of that will be reviewed by the state, and we have to provide them a report every 6 months through September 30th, 2023. So lots of input required, but as Barb said, a mountain of strings attached to it. So
always is.
how are you going to navigate that will be really important, because I know that when you read through these things, there are very loaded statements that we have to be able to answer to, and if you can't answer to it, then
You don't get
then you
reimbursed.
don't get reimbursed. So that's the slippery slope that you have to be able to navigate. And again, I'm reading this stuff verbatim, right from DPI, because I know people are interested in it. Much like when Katie was talking before, 20% of our allocation has to address evidence-based improvement strategies. They talk about the strategy that they just determined is statistically relevant.
Is there an
So
English,
how do
law
you-
version of this?
What's that?
Say, is there an English version, a lawyer version?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the difficult part of
Well,
it,
exactly.
right? Is like, how do you try to maintain the flexibility and service to students without kind of selling your soul to X, Y, Z? Because we know that doesn't work. So we have to be cautious about that. Much like, I think Peel would tell you, much like the charter school. I mean, if in hindsight, we would have much rather have gotten the grant from our current donors rather than involve the state. because the state comes in and then they tell you to be innovative, but be innovative by doing this. But that doesn't work, right? So why are we going to do that? And she's, giving a thumbs up about that. So you have to, right, you have to know when to say no to money, because it doesn't fit your mission, and it doesn't really fit what you're doing.
Well, and to say no, we don't have the time or the staff to put into this when it doesn't seem to be something that's going to advance the education.
The other part is, you bring on staff members, and then the funding goes away, and then we then have to look at X number of staff members and say, oh, you don't have a job anymore, right? Even though their position, may produce the best results, it's going to be tied to a federally funded program, which is really difficult to create any type of sustainability, any type of, long-term improvement practices in your district.
Well, when I talking with Jason, he did say there were some districts that did not access their ESSER funds, I think probably because of the hoops that you have to jump through.
Absolutely. And there are also some that are building really nice football stadiums, right?
How does that fit in?
Because they're saying, right, but they're not gonna get that money. So they're gonna put their community in a really difficult position, because how are they going to recoup that? Because remember, it's an expenditure, and if they don't get reimbursed,
It's on
it
the
all goes on the
taxpayer.
taxpayer. So,
Okay. Moving on to current COVID statistics. Basically, what I'm interested in hearing is, we made some, minor changes and decisions last meeting, or at the special meeting, and have had some time now to see how that worked out. If you could give us a report on that.
So I'll start with the middle school, high school. As of 4:15, before I came to the budget hearing, we have 0 new cases, we have 3 kids quarantined, and we have 0 staff quarantined. The elementary has 5 students, 5 student cases, 1 staff. However, tomorrow, the staff member comes back, and so do one of the students, so you'll have 4. In comparison, 9/25, the day of our special hearing, we had 24 total cases. So there's a pretty drastic in those numbers. I will also say that I see more people wearing masks now than before, because I think, they understand that having that on is going to help them when it comes to close contact quarantine, right? And to answer the question before about when is it updated, the dashboard is updated every single day. So
I thought you
it's
told me
going to.
Fridays.
I did tell you Fridays, and then I looked at it,
Oh,
and it's
okay.
every single day. So,
Okay,
so whenever we input, it's updated, right? So when I looked at it on Friday compared to when I looked at it today, it's different. So it is updated.
can we add a date on it anyway? Just the date?
Sure.
Yeah, if it would just have the today's date, then it would be clear that it was the current numbers.
I will also say that we have pretty active COVID testing that goes on. Probably close to 30 tests a week we administered, so I think that is also helping. We also, Public Health was here, they hosted a booster clinic that was very well attended. I think the trending is going in the right direction. I understand the quarantining. I have a son that's going to be home for 20 plus days, so trust me, I get it. And I guess it's something that we can look at. But
I was told one of the businesses in town, at, if they, and I'm not saying we should do this, because I think this is a little bit, too quick, but if you have close contact, and you have no symptoms, you can go back to work in 3 days. Even if you test positive and you have no symptoms, you can go back to work in 3 days. That was a little bit off. I mean, I wasn't comfortable with that with kids.
Did they
but
have to mask when they went back?
I think they do mask.
Okay.
I think they do mask, but, 3 days positive, I mean, when I had it 3 days, I was still in bed, no way.
I think there is some conversation to be had around quarantining, but it also has to be, like, how do we know that? My fear is that the assumption is made that everybody's gonna take a test. That's not true,
No.
right? So, that's a tough one, right? So,
Well, and that's
how
what's,
do we,
that's what's so tough about comparing other districts and all of that kind of thing too, because everybody has different methods. Everything depends on if people are getting tested or not, because there's a lot of different beliefs around that,
But Amanda, I would be interested in those districts, so drop that off before you leave, give me
I
that.
have lunch right here.
Okay.
It's tough. We as a board have to consider all the different factors. I mean, we've also seen that some school districts are being sued. I mean, I know that there is a healthy percentage of our district parents that absolutely are thrilled with our current stance on optional masking, but I know all of us have also heard from those that are not. I mean, we're never gonna make everybody happy. That's not our position to even, that's not what we're here for. We are here for trying to make the best decision for the district to the best of our ability, and all personal feelings aside.
I think, just looking at the dashboard, I mean, obviously it's been coming down, so that's a great sign.
Oh, yeah. I'm
With the
very
optional
happy to
masking,
hear.
so the
I'm very
quarantine, maybe that's something we need to take a look at.
Or
So
maybe
this
we-
is a 1-month trial that we've been doing since, I have the report.
Right.
So if we do one more month to see what happens at the end of that time, and then we look at the difference in quarantine requirements, or however we want to address it, I think we need to give it this one more month as we're doing it. That'd be my theory.
I'm sort of feeling like, why change anything if we're moving in the right direction?
Right.
We're
Look at it
having-
again and see.
Well, I'm not saying change it, I'm saying look at it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we look at it in a month.
Take a look at it and see, and I
Yeah,
think,
let's hope it's going in the right direction.
I
maybe
mean,
we
we-
are too aggressive in our quarantining, maybe we are too
To
aggressive.
look at what that means.
I just think we have to have a response,
Yeah,
Yeah,
right?
But we,
Because if that basing it on everybody agreeing to test, right, and come back sooner, I mean, that's not true. I mean, people are gonna say no, right? Just like,
They're gonna say, no, they don't want to test?
correct,
Got it.
right?
Right.
So,
Well, then-
so,
That your options are less than.
I mean, it takes a little bit of a collaborative effort
Yes.
there, where you're banking on the fact that people are going to be honest,
Right.
which that's a stretch. I'll just say that's a stretch. I mean, there are school districts around us too that are reporting 0 cases.
again, do you test?
Right.
Right.
So their own people will tell you exactly what's happening, right? So we have to be able to work together. Because I haven't heard anybody say that, they want a child that, is in school. I haven't heard people say that.
Okay, I hope
I think there's consensus around if a child is, not symptomatic and has gone through a process, then I think, we look at that. I mean, my own personals, right? So I get a 5th grader at home, going on 20 days,
Oh, my.
okay? Also a 5th grader that's told his dad, I don't want to go back to school. I'm just fine doing what I'm doing. right? So that's difficult for me, right? And I understand what parents are going through.
Yep.
Right? Because, right, what do I do when I'm a superintendent of schools and my wife's a teacher? Right? So we have to think about some of that stuff, right? And how do we set up something so that, you know, it's agreed upon by all parties, and it's not dependent on testing, because people are not going to use that.
I don't think that that kind of system can be determined in a discussion group
No.
like this. Because again, we have to be careful about what we're looking at. But I think certainly, we can take
We need to
input
take
on
a
it
look,
and
yep.
take a look at it.
But my guess is that document says that exhibiting symptoms based on a parent's,
You want it?
right? I mean, I know what it says.
Oh,
but,
I don't,
I
so I
mean,
want it.
that's what it's based on. So that's where there needs to be some clarity across all parties.
A more
because-
definitive measurement than that.
We also,
Parents who don't pay attention
we
to their
all,
kids well enough to do that.
you know, we also know, right? They send them and they don't care. And now you have a different scenario on your hands, which we have to be
Really careful.
really careful about.
Yeah, it's not a simple, there's
Right.
no
There's
simple
no simple
answer.
answer to it.
But it sounds like our numbers have gone the right direction. And our intent was to try and keep, it sounds, as much as there's going to be some individual situations, like
Absolutely.
your own, where there are kids out quarantined, it sounds like the numbers have drastically reduced. And in the way we wanted to, because we want kids in school learning.
I wanted to ask about the air purifiers. Are there one in each one of the classrooms? Okay, good, good.
There's a lady out in the audience that just has a question. Can we address that or no?
More background. So legally, is there some sort of requirement for school districts to have COVID policies, or is this just something we feel compelled to do?
I don't,
I think
first
so.
of
That's a
all,
lo-
we are.
that's a loaded-
just-
Well, I'm
yeah.
not trying
Very
to make
low.
it
Yeah, I
a
know.
loaded question, I'm just
And-
like, where is
and
this all
excuse me.
starting from, or
Excuse me,
historically?
I'm
off
allowing
track
you
here.
to address us, this is really our meeting, but I know everybody's just interested in answers, we're not trying to keep anything from you. From a liability standpoint and everything, we have to have policies related to it. And then we have to decide how much liability we wanna take. We are taking some liability for not going strictly with the federal and state and Department of Health and everybody else in terms of, you know, recommending, universal masking. We have chosen as a district to say, we're gonna look at our district and what's happening here and with our students and try and decide what the best thing is for them. But we are a little bit out on a limb
Oh,
in
okay.
terms of if one of the kids of the parents that is really for masking, that tells us, I'm sending my kid to school and I'm worried about them getting sick, you know, so, you know, it's not easy. And we try and balance, and I think frankly, we've done a pretty nice job of looking at our district separate from the other ones.
Yeah, and the only thing that I would respond to in saying is that we always have to be able to prove due diligence.
Mhm.
So if a parent comes at me and I'm sitting in a courtroom and they ask me 5 questions and my answer is no, 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 we're screwed. So is there a law? No. But I have to be able to base decisions on something. So that's where it gets really frustrating, because it's a gray area. Because one parent comes in and says, don't really care, right? The next parent comes in and says, I want every protection known to man, okay? And my son or daughter is in special education. Now, you have amplified that times 10.
Yeah.
Because if they prove that you were negligent in providing a safe and secure environment for especially a student with disabilities, there's lots of case law on that, and school districts go down in flames. So, I hope I'm answering it.
Yeah, I think
There
you
is,
are.
there is nothing that says, Nick, in school board, you have to do this. But there is a lot, just like I've been reading tonight, you know, like ESSER funding. That's why I say it's loaded statements. Like, prove that you are following all of these recommendations. If you can't, then you're not allowed to even access them. So, like, it's, it's like, we're not telling you what to do, but we really are telling you what to do, right? So,
And we better have the ability to give reasons
Yep.
behind our decisions.
Right.
We can't just on a whim. It's unfortunately not just, oh, the most people want it this way, so that's what we're gonna do.
Right.
We have to have reasons that we make a decision with certainly public input. We want it. Community input is important to us, and as
I will add that there is a significant financial element to that. So I just want to give you the exact number. So, basically, just shy of $5 million is attached to that due diligence. So it's really difficult to fund the school district, pay for teachers, pay to educate kids, if all of a sudden they say, you know.
acting
didn't-
recklessly,
You know,
yeah.
because, again, especially, and the school board knows this, but everything from a federal level comes with attachments, right? So years ago, people were upset about school lunch, right? Well, get rid of school lunch, fine, okay. But the federal government says, you do that, you get rid of Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, right? All federal funded programs. So for us, that's probably close to $3 million. So in a decision where, hey, we just want the best possible food for our kids and not be dependent on federal government commodities, it's tied to all of these other programs that we really need to support our kids. So again, they're not, right, they're not.
You have a choice,
done at
however.
law. You know, I think, you know, I know of maybe 1 or 2 school districts that don't follow federal school lunch program. They happen to be the most wealthy school districts. What does that tell you? They get 0 federal money and 0 state money. So then they can do whatever they want, right? So if you want to look at, you know, we have that in a really small geographical area in northeast Wisconsin. You have very, very affluent school districts that spend north of $20,000 a year per student. And we spend about 8, right? Most of our funding comes from the state because we don't have the value in order to support. That's why we have equalized aid. And, you know, I looked at one the other day because I really wanted, it's on that sheet you were looking at before.
Oh, it is? Here?
I think they got like $14.
What's that?
I think they got like $14 from the state. So do you think they're gonna listen to the state? No. Are they gonna do the state required testing? No. What's ironic is, what are they, you know, they're the top 10 high school in the state. They get to do what they, you know, can support, but it all is not fair and all is not equal when you're talking about public school. And the financing that goes with that is really difficult, right? And especially if you are in areas where you don't have a ton of property value, then you're really beholden to the state, right? Which, for me personally, when I look at some of the practices of those school districts, and I'm going, it's like rogue. Because they're putting in jeopardy tens of millions of dollars. And, you know, people probably say, well, just go ahead and do it, but the fact of the matter is, if you lose $5 million, your school district's gonna dissolve like that. And I don't think anybody in the room wants the Algoma School District to dissolve. So, you know, I'm not here for a bunch of mandates, I'm not here to, but I'm also here to try and balance, like, okay, we need this to actually operate a system, right? And I guess this is the hoop, right? Or the hurdle that we have to jump through to get this, right? So it's this constant balance back and forth on how do you do that, right? And I don't think, sure as hell isn't easy. There's no easy button like the commercial, right? So I think we have to continue to have kind of civil conversations about things that come up and why do we do what we do. You know, there are reasons we do what we do. We don't sometimes even like the reasons we have to do certain things because we can't operate any other way. Whereas down the road, they just laugh because they don't have to do that. And right, money?
Yeah, I'm glad I asked the question, and
Yeah.
I think you gave a good explanation. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to, unless anybody on the board has any further comments or things they want to discuss under stats. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to action items. I will ask for a motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes of September 27th, the Finance Committee meeting minutes of October 18th.
So move.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Pat, seconded by Joanne. Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I need a motion to approve the bills that were presented to us tonight.
I-
Move. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Motion made by Ann,
Ann.
seconded
Second.
by Joanne?
Sure.
Madam President,
Yes.
I so move.
Okay. With the delay there, okay, so we're saying,
Yeah, she can second.
okay, Dave
Moved.
and
Ann.
who's second?
Come on, guys, you can't do this to me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Dave had to
she
jump
got
in
it.
there.
Sorry.
Okay. Any questions or discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I believe all four, the next four items are all gonna require a roll call vote. And given we just did it at the budget hearing, it's just happened to be that we were so close together with our meetings, but it still needs to be done in a full board meeting. So I need a motion to approve the final budget for 2021-2022 school year.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Joanne, seconded by Ann. Roll call vote, Dave?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Pat? And I also say yes, motion carries. I need a motion to approve the tax levy for Fund 10 in the amount of $2,457,254.
So move.
Motion made by Pat, seconded by Jennifer. Roll call vote, Dave?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Yes.
Ann? Pat?
Yes.
And I also say yes, motion carries. I need a motion to approve the tax levy for the capital project sinking fund 39 in the amount of $975,000.
So move.
Motion made by Mick,
I'll second.
seconded by Joanne. Roll call vote, Dave?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
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 And Pat?
Yes.
And I also say yes, motion carries. I need a motion to approve the tax levy for Community Services Fund 80 in the amount of $200,000.
I'll move.
Motion made by Ann,
A second.
seconded by Jennifer. Roll call vote, Dave?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Mick?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
And I also say yes to that, motion carries. I don't think the rest requires any roll call vote, so I need a motion to approve the Nicolay Bank Wealth Management as vehicle for school district fund balance.
I so move.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Joanne, seconded by Mick. Any questions or discussion on that one? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I need a motion to approve the $600 donation from Lawrence E. Strickling and Sydney L. Hans for voice choral training program.
So move.
A second.
Okay, motion by Pat, seconded by Jennifer. Questions or discussion, other than thank you,
Yeah.
gentlemen?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Is there any motion for any modification of our current COVID mitigation practice?
No, leave it as is.
Hearing none, we will move on. Any requests for future agenda items? Okay. Then I need a motion to go into executive session under Wisconsin statute 19.85 subsections 1C, E, F, and I for the purpose of personnel matters, hires, staffing, resignations.
So move.
I'll second.
Motion made by Pat, seconded by Joanne. This is a roll call vote. Dave?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Mick?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes. Yes.
And I also say yes.